Welcome back for Keeper of the Lost Cities, Nightfall, Chapter 60 and 61. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a chapter, and this is Chapter 60. 2 Nightfalls? Mr. Forkle asked as he stared at the stack of weathered blue journals Sophie was carrying. She'd found the books waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs when she'd emerged from her bedroom the next morning, exactly as Lady Giselle had promised they would be. I'll admit, that's a twist I didn't see coming. Neither did I, Sophie said, setting the pile down on the table in front of the sofa. But Keefe's mom claimed the proof is in these. She'd tried reading the ancient yellowed pages, but they were filled with runes her brain couldn't understand. The only things she'd recognized were the swirling lines of the falling star symbol stamped in the corner of every page and pressed onto the cover with gold foil. And we don't know where the other Nightfall is, Tiergan noted. Only that it's somewhere in Atlantis, Sophie agreed. Oh, good, because that's not a huge city or anything, Tam said, flopping onto the couch between Biana and Lynn. Their group was smaller that morning, thanks to all the projects they were juggling. Only Tam, Lynn, Fitz, Biana, Grady, Alden, Mr. Forkle, and Tiergan were there, along with Sandor, Grizzle, and Walter, of course, who were outside with Kadok trying to figure out how Lady Giselle had managed to sneak past their security again. Lady Giselle said the entrance would be marked with a Nightfall symbol, Fitz added. Mr. Forkle grabbed one of the journals and traced his fingers over the swirling gold lines on the cover. In all my visits to the city, I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I, Tiergan said. Same, Grady agreed. Quinlan's the best person to ask, Alden suggested. He knows the city better than anyone. Sadly, a quick hail to Quinlan confirmed that he'd never noticed the symbol either. Well, now that we know what to look for, I'm sure we'll be able to find it, Fitz said, deciding to be the optimistic one. Is that seriously our plan? Tam asked. We're just going to wander around Atlantis and hope we spot it? No, Mr. Forkle said. The Never-Seen likely have eyes in our city, and we don't want them to know we're searching for them. Better to scour these notebooks first, see if there are any other clues that might help us narrow down a more precise location. I'm sure there's at least one that Lady Giselle missed, or chose not to tell us, so we'd have to work for it. He turned to the first page and frowned at the tiny writing. Wow, these runes are ancient. I thought all runes were ancient, Sophie said, glancing at Alden. Isn't that what you told me? Probably, and it's true in the sense that we've long relied on a more modern alphabet, Alden explained, but our runes also evolve over time. So I believe that Mr. Forkle is saying that these journals are written with letters that predate the runes we use more commonly. See these extra curves? Mr. Forkle pointed to several marks in the journal. Those flourishes were only used in our most ancient alphabet, before the characters were simplified to make them easier to write. So, does that mean you can't read the journals? Sophie asked. I can pick out some of the words, since many have only a few unfamiliar letters, but others are gibberish. Grady grabbed one of the other journals and flipped through, seeming to have the same problem. Tiergan and Alden struggled as well. Would Bronte be able to read it? Fitz asked. Probably, but I'm not sure we want to hand these over to the council, Mr. Forkle warned. Not until we know exactly what they say. Besides, if Lady Giselle can figure it out, I certainly can. I just have to get my hands on one of the ancient lexicons. Quinlan has several, Alden noted. Perfect. Can you let him know that Sir Aston will be paying him a visit to his office later today to borrow them? Should I tell him why? Alden asked. Mr. Forkle considered. At this point, he's involved enough that it's probably better for him to know one of my identities. Perhaps we can translate the journals together. I'll have your sister help as well, he told Sophie. It'll be good for her to stay involved. Shouldn't we be getting her out of the city? Sophie asked. Now that we know the Never-Seen are targeting Atlantis? Having a hideout there and targeting the city are two very different things, Mr. Forkle reminded her. If anything, they're more likely to protect the city to prevent any harm from coming to their facility. It's also important to keep in mind that this Nightfall has apparently existed for thousands of years without causing any harm. But the person who built it was in prison, Sophie countered. She's free now, and we all saw what the Neverseen did to Eternalia and Luminaria. If it would make you feel better, Sophie, Amy's welcome to stay here, Grady offered. Mr. Forkel shook his head. I don't think that would be wise. Gisela has no problem breaching the security here. He patted the stack of journals as proof. What about Everglen? Biana suggested. She would be more than welcome, Alden told her, though I'm not sure our home could guarantee her safety either. More than that, I think we need to consider the fact that this could be a ploy to flush Sophie's sister out of hiding. The Neverseen used a similar fear tactic to find Sophie when they sparked those white fires around her city to inspire you to relocate her, and Gisela was in charge at that point. I was thinking the same thing, Tiergan admitted, and if that's the case, it's far safer to leave Amy where she is. Gisela wouldn't resort to this kind of trick if she'd already knew how to find her. You think she's after my sister? Sophie asked. I think we have to at least consider it, Mr. Forkel said gently. The fact is, we don't know what Gisela is truly planning with any of this. So it's best to resist changing anything that's currently working. Look at what happened with Luminaria. Had we left Geffen where we'd originally been holding him, he wouldn't have been anywhere near the Peace Summit. It was only when we altered our plans that we fell in line with theirs. He has a point, Grady admitted. We'll monitor the city, Tiergan added. I'll even alert the council to see if they want to make adjustments to security. And I'll give Quinlan a thorough update, Alden promised, to make sure he knows to be extra vigilant. I'll also check the apartment myself when I'm there later today, Mr. Forkel assured her, to see that every precaution has been taken. Sophie couldn't argue with any of their reasoning, but every nerve in her body still itched to grab her sister and run. I wish she wasn't somewhere so hard to get to, she mumbled. I know in some ways that's an advantage, but if something happens, it's a huge process to get there. Same goes for if they have to evacuate. If it would make you feel better, I can give you a small bottle of Starlight from Candesia and a Maxidium charm that leads to the city, as well as other crucial locations like Havenfield and the physician's office at Foxfire, Mr. Forkel offered. But you know how illegal that is, so you'd have to let Adeline hide it in the void and only use it in an emergency. Of course, Sophie promised, grateful for the backup plan, even if leaping with the light of an unmapped star was a complete misery. Mr. Forkel set his journal back on the pile. If that's settled, we still need to discuss the deal you've made with Lady Gisela. I'm assuming she didn't give you this information out of the goodness of her heart. Sophie fussed with her gloves. She wanted us to steal back her archetype. I guess it's a book that no one can read without a special key? And that was her only demand? Grady asked. Fitz glanced at Sophie. She also wants us to destroy the facility, he admitted. Tim whistled. I mean, normally, I'm all for smashing things that belong to the Neverseen, but it kind of sounds like she's putting you in the middle of her revenge on Finton. I'm already in the middle, Sophie reminded him. Finton has my parents. Biana sucked in a breath. Has anyone considered that this whole thing might actually be the Neverseen's trap? I'm sure they know that we've been in touch with Keith's mom, since we couldn't have gotten into Nightfall without her. So maybe this is why they left Alvar there, knowing that the symbol would lead us to this other facility. It's possible, Mr. Forkel admitted. I still have to check it, Sophie said quietly. It's not like we have any other leads right now, and not just for finding my parents. This facility could be where they're keeping their supplies of Saporidine, or could at least have some clues on what they're planning. But if you guys don't want to go with me, I'm in, Fitz interrupted, reaching for her hand and holding on tight. So am I, Biana promised. That's not what I was saying. I just meant that we might want to be prepared for them to be expecting us, that's all. We need a plan, Tam agreed, a good one. Do you think there's information about the facility in the cache? Lynn asked. It could be the reason Finton's new advisor was arrested. I'm sure it was, Alden said through a sigh. Or at least part of the reason. I'll be sure to tell Dex and Bronte in case it changes their strategy for the passwords. I need to head to Eternalia anyway. I'm meeting with another former guard from Luminaria today, and I'm still trying to convince Fallon to meet with me. Maybe I'll just show up and force the issue. At this point, we need to exhaust every option. I agree, Mr. Forkle jumped in, as Alden pulled out his Pathfinder, which is why it would be wise for the rest of you to spend whatever time you can researching Atlantis to see if there's anything in our history that refers to the facility. I realize that kind of work is far from your favorite, but there may very well be subtle records that could help us narrow down the precise location, or more importantly, the time period it was constructed. Why is that more important than the location? Sophie asked. He sighed, running a swollen hand down his face. Because one of the words I do recognize in this journal is human, over and over. And given how things deteriorated between our species, it's unsettling to know our side has a secret that's managed to stay buried for a millennia. A secret connected to a prisoner so horrible the council erased her from their memories. Sounds like you think Nightfall had something to do with the sinking of Atlantis, Grady noted. I think it's crucial we find out. The best place to look would be the archives in Eternalia's main library. Perhaps you could take everyone there, Mr. Ruin? Tam groaned. You realize how huge that place is, right? The search will likely be daunting, Mr. Forkle told him, but we're all enduring tedious forms of information gathering. He tapped the pile of journals he'd be stuck translating. I know it can feel slow and exhausting, but this is a vital step, especially when we're so frighteningly behind the curve. Everything he'd said made sense, miserable and boring as it sounded. But they were also forgetting something. What about Prentice? Sophie asked. I have the story about what happened to Syra now. Doesn't that mean I should start working towards healing him? Absolutely, Mr. Forkle told her. But that doesn't mean you should be heading there today. I understand how frustrating it is to hear me say that, but are you really prepared to share these heartbreaking revelations with him? Because every single word you say will either help him or harm him. It's a tremendous responsibility, one that I would gladly take on myself if I could, but I can't. I can help, Fitz offered, tightening his hold on her hand when he noticed the way Sophie had started shaking. We all can. We'll write it up like a script, that way you just have to memorize it and deliver it. I'm sure it'll only take us a couple of days to get it all worked out. That's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Forkle told him. But I'd like to ask a favor. I want to be there for every stage of Prentice's healing, especially the first one, when he'll be the most vulnerable. And with Foxfire resuming sessions, I have too many responsibilities as Magnate Leto for me to be anywhere other than my office for at least the next week. I can still work on these, he promised, tapping the journals, but I can't be sneaking away to where Prentice is staying. I'm sorry. I know it's an incredibly selfish request. If I could be at two places at once. His voice cracked, and he turned away, shaking his head. Tiergan moved closer, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. It's not selfish. We all want you to be there for this. And I'm sure the more time Sophie has to prepare for the conversation, the better. So how about we wait until everyone survives the first week of Foxfire, and in the meantime, we'll focus on these other projects. Everyone nodded. But I think we need to tell Wiley today, Lynn added quietly. He should know what we've learned about his mom, and that we're scheduling his father's healing in case he wants us to wait. I was thinking the same thing, Tiergan agreed. Do you think Syra would have told him anything about the Starstones, or given him the missing one? Sophie had to ask. I feel like he would have mentioned it, Tiergan told her, especially after the Neverseen interrogated him, but I still intend to double-check. I was planning to head there now. I'll go with you, Lynn offered, in case he needs cheering up. Tam glared at his sister. Oh, sure. Leave us in research torment while you go and hang out with your friend. Hello, Bianna told him, pointing to herself and Fitz and Sophie. You're hanging out with us. Yeah, but in a library? Bianna laughed. It's too bad Keith isn't here. You two could have a contest to see who whines the most. I'd win, Keith said from the doorway. Time seemed to stop. Or maybe it was Sophie's heart as she watched him stride into the room. Keith managed not to look at her as he folded his arms and flashed his famous smirk, telling everyone, That's right, I'm back. Chapter 61. What are you doing here? Sophie asked. Keith's smirk widened as his eyes finally found their way to hers. It's good to see you too, Foster. Though, yowza, that's a lot of emotion to hit a guy with all at once. In case you need help deciding, I'd go for the part of you that wants to run over here for an epic Team Foster Keith hug fest, and not the part that wants to rip off my arm and smack me with it. She looked away, blinking hard, trying to figure out how to respond. Keith closed the distance between them, but still stood a few careful feet away as he added, "In case you're wondering, I'm all healed." He stretched out his arms and waved them around in a weird little dance, without even the slightest wince. "Elwyn took me off bed rest last night, and you can barely see the scar. I'd show you to prove it, but it'd probably be weird to take off my shirt right now." "It would," Gritty agreed. Keith nodded. "I've also been eavesdropping outside. Plus, Forkle hailed me this morning and caught me up on everything that's been happening. So I already know about the giant beast things my mom made, and how we haven't drugged Alvar in custody, and how all that boring stuff from Lady Cadence's report about the bacteria turned out to have something to do with flowers, and how there apparently is another Nightfall in Atlantis that's not part of my legacy, and that's where we need to go to get your parents. Oh, and my mom wants us to steal from it and destroy it, which totally kills all the fun, but I'm still game for blowing a never-seen hideout off the planet." "When Elwyn let me know that Keith was back on his feet," Mr. Forkle explained, "I figured it'd be easier if I got him up to speed, so that he wouldn't slow us down today with tons of questions." "Oh, I still have questions," Keith said. "Lots of them, but I'm only going to ask one. For now." His eyes shifted back to Sophie, and he struggled to swallow as he asked, "How much groveling am I going to have to be doing before you trust me again?" "Hopefully a lot," Tam jumped in. "I second that," Bianna added, "and I don't even know exactly what happened." Keith's focus didn't shift from Sophie. "Your call, Foster. I totally get why you ousted me. I was being an idiot," Fitz suggested. Keith shrugged. "I was going to go with a sparkly poop head." Sophie's lips twitched at that. "I should get you a t-shirt that says that." "I'd wear it," Keith said, leaning slightly closer. "I'm sorry, Sophie. Really. And I'll do whatever it takes to make it up to you. That's why I stayed in bed, even though I knew my mom had dragged you into a million dangerous things. I wanted to prove that I could do the right thing. Well, that and Ro threatened to tie me down and cover me in flesh-eating bacteria if I didn't. And I could tell she meant it." "That's right," Sophie said, standing on her tiptoes to scan the room. "Where's Ro?" "Outside, messing with Sandor. Who knew she could do a killer impression of his bunny voice?" That time, Sophie's smile broke through. "She also figured out how my mom snuck past all the security within about 3 seconds, Keith added. "And she spent the entire time I've been eavesdropping, pointing out a ton of other things the goblins are doing wrong. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be an ogre goblin rumble any minute now." "Nah, I don't feel like having my hair messed up," Rose said, sauntering into the house, patting her tiny pigtails. Sandor, Walter, Grizzle, and Caddock scrambled in after her, taking up defensive positions around the room. Ro flashed a smile that emphasized the points of her teeth. "You guys are hilarious. I told you. I'm here under a bunch of boring, don't kill anyone orders. Plus, I just painted my nails." She held up her hands to show off her claws, which were a deep, shiny blue. Sandor gripped the hilt of his sword. Ro didn't seem to notice. "Now, here's a shock. Another elven house, decorated with sparkles. But at least this place has dinosaurs, and it's not as ridiculous as that towering monstrosity he grew up in." She pointed with a blue claw at Keith. "That place screams overcompensating." "You've been to Candleshade?" Sophie asked. "Only because he told me I could break stuff." Rose swung her arms as if she were mentally bashing things with a baseball bat. "I sent Ro to search for whatever my mom left behind," Keith explained. "That way at least something was getting accomplished while I was stuck in bed." We accomplished a ton of stuff without you," Fitz reminded him. "Yeah, I know." Keith's smile faded and his eyes lowered to Sophie's hand, which she realized was still entwined with Fitz's. "I found it, by the way," Rose said. "The thing his mom hid. It looks like junk to me, but it shut him up, so that's all that matters. Plus, it was awesome shattering that ugly crystal desk to get into it. If any of you guys need stuff smashed, let me know." I'll keep it in mind, Sophie told her, turning back to Keith. What did she find? He pulled 4 pieces of metal out of his pocket, 2 silver and 2 gold, each with variations in their curved edges. Okay, Sophie said. What are they? Keith held up one finger and ordered to wait before he selected one of the gold pieces, checking the edges a couple of times and slipping it into the curve of one of the silver parts. He's gonna show off now, Ro told them, and pretend like he's a genius, but this took him days to figure out. Keith shrugged. Or I had time to kill, and I knew you hated the noise. He knocked the loose pieces together with his other hand and created a surprisingly loud blink, blink, blink. Ro snarled. Keith smirked and went back to flipping the connected pieces, twisting them a few times before he slid the other silver piece into the arrangement and twisted again. Okay, this part is the one that's tricky. He rotated one of the pieces and then adjusted them to 3 different heights before he tilted the gold piece and tried slipping it in. No go. It took several back and forths and a lot of muttering, but eventually it slid in, and once it did, the other pieces snapped together, creating a 2-tone square about the size of an imparter, but twice as thick. Ta-da! Told you they wouldn't applaud, Rose said, when everyone stared at the square, waiting for it to do something. Is it a gadget? Sophie asked. Keith tapped it a few times. It doesn't seem to be. Honestly, I have no idea what it is. But at least I figured out how to piece it together, right? Their murmured agreement was half-hearted at best. Keith sighed. Tough crowd. I must have made it look too easy. I'm sure it is easy, Tam said, snatching the square from Keith and snapping the pieces apart. But when he went to pop it back together... How's that working out for you, Banks boy? Keith asked. Tam scowled. No amount of twisting, flipping, or rotating the pieces could get any of them connected. Ro cringed at the plink, plink, plinking. Oh man, this is the greatest present you could have ever given me, Keith told him. Whatever, it's stupid, Tam muttered. Can I try? Bianca asked. She managed to fit 2 pieces together, but the last 2 refused to snap in. No one could do any better. Not Fitz, not Lynn, not Mr. Forgle, or Grady, or Alden. Even the goblins tried, and Grizzle looked ready to crush the pieces into dust, which made Ro laugh so hard she snorted. Think you can do better? Keith asked Sophie. Or are you too afraid to admit that I'm the real talent in this group? When he put it like that, Sophie snatched the bits of metal and set to work. So you really don't have any theories about what this is? Nope. But remember how my mom said something like, you finally solved that puzzle, when I told her I had found something? This has to be what she meant. You're doing it wrong, by the way. You have to end with the gold pieces. Sophie held up the 3 pieces she'd fit together. Both gold and 1 silver. Then how come I've gotten farther than anyone else? Because you can be wrong and still smarter than those guys, Keith said with a grin. Or I could ignore you and... She tilted the last silver piece one way, then another, and finally twisted around and click! Now that deserves applause, Rose said. I love this girl so hard. Keith snatched the puzzle from Sophie, turning it around in his hands. I don't get it. The way I do it has the silver splotches curved out and the gold circling in. So maybe you do it wrong, Tam suggested. It's a puzzle, Keith argued. The pieces should only fit together one way. Not if that's part of the challenge, Sophie countered. Maybe it's not just about solving it, but solving it a specific way. If that's true, Fitz said, how will we know which way is right? Sophie had no idea, but she took back the puzzle, examining it from every angle before she pulled the pieces apart and tried solving it again. Keith moved to help, and while there was a whole lot of bickering, they managed to get 3 out of 4 clicks into place in another new arrangement. You have to twist the last one the other way, Keith said as she wrestled with the gold piece. No, if I tilt it, she angled the piece, then twisted the others, and plink! Ugh! Anyone else think it looks exactly the same? Ro asked. It's pretty similar, but now the gold bits are connected, Tam noted. Is that better? Ro asked. Bianca sucked in her breath. Yes! Don't you guys see? Everyone squinted at the square. Fitz caught it first. It's a rune. And not just any rune, Bianca said, tracing her fingers across the golden shape. It means archetype. That concludes chapters 60 and 61. I'll see you tomorrow for 62 and 63. Bye.